Good morning, everyone, or afternoon or evening, wherever you are in the world, and welcome to the final day of NASA's 2020 Exploration Science Forum. I hope you've all enjoyed it as much as I have. It's been just a fantastic experience connecting with everyone. Before I introduce our two guests, I want to let all of you know that the survey will be available on our website shortly, and you'll also get a link to it on the email. We strongly encourage you to fill it out. We'd like to know where we did well. We'd like to know where we can improve things. So please do that if you wouldn't mind. So today, we're very privileged to have two of NASA's leaders in the area that we are so immersed in exploration science. I'd remind everyone that Mark Robinson shared the story of how he came up with the idea of exploration enables science and science enables exploration, which is just so foundational to what we do at Survey and what our whole community does. And so today we've brought two important people in this area together, Dr. Lori Glaze and Mark Kirasich. And Dr. Lori Glaze is the director of NASA's Science Mission Directorate's Planetary Science Division, where amongst many other things, she oversees projects and programs such as Perseverance, due to launch later this month, and Viper, and so many others. Prior to headquarters, Dr. Glaze served as the chief of the Planetary Geology, Geophysics, and Geochemistry Laboratory at Goddard Space Flight Center in Greenbelt, Maryland, and as the deputy director of Goddard's Solar System Exploration Division. Her research interests include physical processes in terrestrial and planetary volcanology, atmospheric transport and diffusion processes, and geologic mass movements. Mark Kirasich has been the director of the Orion program since 2015, and more recently took on the lead division position for Sustainable Moon within HEOMD, something this entire community is, of course, interested in. He began his NASA career in 1983 at the agency's Johnson Space Center in Houston, and as a member of the Space Shuttle Flight Operations Team, he quickly advanced to the position of lead Space Shuttle Payload Officer in Mission Control. In 1996, he was selected as a flight director in charge of planning and executing NASA human spaceflight missions, serving in that capacity for multiple Space Shuttle missions and International Space Station expeditions. So Lori Glaze and Mark Kirasich, welcome, and please go ahead. Thank you so much.
Well, good morning, Greg. This is Lori. Hopefully you can hear me. I'm trying to share my video. It had worked earlier, but I'm not seeing it yet.
Yeah, we can hear you just fine, but no video quite yet.
Okay. Yeah, it was working earlier. I'm not sure why. But anyway, I'm really delighted to be here with Mark to talk to you guys. Oh, there, my video just popped up on my screen. Good. So really happy to be here with you and with all of the Exploration Science Forum folks, and with Mark as well, whom I just personally met just very, very recently, but really, really excited with working with him, working together going forward. So I don't know if Mark wants to say a few words, and then you tell us how we want to go, what the format is you'd like us to follow.
You bet, you bet. Yeah, Mark, please go ahead. We're not hearing you.
How's this?
There, that's great, thank you.
Yeah, hey, Greg and Lori, thank you both for inviting me, and welcome. I realize this is the last day. Welcome to all the participants to this session. Greg mentioned as the introduction, I'm relatively new to this part of NASA's enterprise. I've been at the Johnson Space Center since 1983, a long time, and it was 4 months ago Monday, that I became a headquarters employee for the first time, albeit I've been a headquarters employee from my living room here in Houston, as we've all been learning to live and work in this new way. So I'm relatively new, and Greg talked a little bit about my past. The last 5 years, I was the program manager of Orion, the spacecraft that's going to take people to these destinations, which was, by the way, every job I get, I pinch myself all the time, including this one. It was an incredible job. One of the things I do when I'm in a job, I'm heads down a lot, heads down. So I didn't really know about our lunar program other than Orion and SLS. And I'll tell you, 4 months ago, when I came to headquarters and assumed this new job, I was incredibly surprised with, first of all, the breadth of it and the thought that went into it, both on the elements, the human elements, as well as how integrated we were with the technology and science areas. So it was really surprising for me. And Jake Bleacher, who, by the way, I work very closely in my new job, and also Greg, have given me an introduction to Survey. And again, another surprise to me. I didn't know all these things were out there. I'm really impressed by the way Survey gives those of us who typically deal with large aerospace contractors a way to quickly and easily engage a broader set of people from industry, from academia, from universities, beyond the typical NASA workforce and the contractors we usually deal with. And when Greg arranged for a couple-hour briefing to introduce me, I was really, really impressed with the work. And a couple of things that really hit home. I said, boy, I'd like to learn about that immediately. And for example, many of you might know that just a week or so ago, on board the International Space Station, a Survey-developed tool was for the very first time a key part of the extravehicular activity or spacewalk that we did. And also some of the tools that the Survey community is developing for science. There's a really neat tool that allows you to visualize the surface of the moon, to plan science activities. And I said, boy, we're going to need that for human activities too, and let's not redevelop it. So the first couple of weeks, I was really impressed with the work, very anxious to incorporate the work into our human plans. And also, it's really important for us, Greg said, and by the way, I was told, by the way, your job is to develop a sustainable lunar program. I said, great, I can't wait. What does sustainable mean? So Greg's, many people have been helping me with that. First of all, it means, hey, we have to fit our budget, but it also means we in the human program, especially since it takes so many resources to put people places, we have to make sure the work we do is of value to a larger group of people, to, for example, the science community, to the technology community. And so what we're doing, and it's very important, and Jake is helping me a great deal with this, Jake Bleacher, we are making sure that as we embark upon building these human systems, the lander system, the gateway, the rovers, that we're being very conscientious in our requirements and our designs to make sure we put the hooks in place, to make sure we're thinking about what you all need to do, what science you'll need to do to make sure we can accommodate on our vehicles, on our infrastructures, things that will be important to you, things that will be important to more people on Earth to make this program sustainable. So thank you for inviting me here today. If I can have 2 or 3 more minutes, Lori and Greg, I wanted to share just a couple of charts to show our progress. This will be tricky too. Let's see, I'm new on Zoom. Let's see, share screen. Here it is. All right, hopefully, let me know when you can see this.
Yes, we see it.
Good, we'll go to slideshow mode. I hope if we've been doing our job, that most of this is old news, but this is really a few of the key milestones that my organization, Advanced Exploration Systems, really the human systems, a few of the key milestones that have happened over the past couple of months. None I had anything to do with, just inherited briefly, really when I arrived. But the first thing I'm sure everybody by now knows that really the key piece that enables us to get back to the moon is the lander. And the Human Landing System program is being led by Lisa Watson-Morgan and the Marshall Space Flight Center. They had a very big accomplishment, a very big milestone the end of April, early May this year, there was a big competition. They picked 3 companies, actually groups of companies, to go to the next level in design of the human landers, Dynetics, SpaceX, and the national team. And really interesting, you can just tell by the pictures, we wanted competition, we wanted innovation, different ideas, and boy, did we get them. If you look closely, 3 completely different approaches to putting people back on the moon. The Dynetics approach on the left, where you've got this crew cabin very low to the ground. By the way, it is a single element that lands, and then we actually jettison those propellant tanks on the side before ascending. The SpaceX, also single element, incredibly different concept. If you haven't heard about it, it's a gigantic vehicle. We can put 100 tons of payload on the surface of the moon. And that, by the way, that is to scale there. Right in the middle, those are people descending on an elevator to the surface. Incredibly bold and innovative concept. And then the national team developed by Blue, led by Blue, with Lockheed, Northrop Grumman participating. If those of us who are more traditional NASA, you see it looks kind of their initial proposal, kind of like the Apollo liner. So 3 completely different ideas. So what Lisa did to herself, now they've got a really tough job. We're in something called the base period. And the base period, all 3 of these designs are being furthered. The requirement set is being honed in on. And by the end of the year, we're going to have final briefings from these folks such that we can down select, if you will, to preferably 2 to go to the next step, which is the design and manufacturing of the very first landers. And that we are on plan to do by next February next year. Another key piece in our sustainability is the International Gateway. It will allow us, first of all, to have a permanent orbiting facility around the moon. It's not going to be nearly as big as Space Station, but it provides a lot of capability. And a key part of the Gateway is it's international. Really, the pieces, the core pieces here, which is the power and propulsion element, and this habitation element here, are provided by us. We launched those in 2023. Here's the lander, by the way. Here's the lander. Here's Orion. All these other elements are provided by international partners. And another big milestone just this month, the memorandum of understanding, which is between the governments, actually even above NASA, it's between our State Department and the equivalent from all of these international partners, Canada, Europe, ESA, JAXA, Roscosmos. The Russians are not yet involved. They are not part of the Gateway MOU yet. They will be soon. We focused on these 3 international partners. That MOU that formalizes the Gateway plan and formalizes the international commitments is in the process of being signed by every one of the member international partners. So another big accomplishment. And then next week the first, we have a series of human surface elements, rovers that provide mobility, habitats that provide longer duration stays so people can stay longer on the surface and explore further. To do things like science, like in situ resource processing. The very first one of those elements is this rover here. It's called an unpressurized rover, LTV, or lunar terrain vehicle. Very simple, very similar to what several of the Apollo astronauts used on the surface of the moon. That's the very first of these, what we call surface elements, that we are going to build. And we are having our acquisition strategy meeting within our directorate on Tuesday. So what that does, that kicks off the process of, first of all, establishing a program office. This program office will be at NASA's Johnson Space Center, and then also kicks off allows us to go out and start planning requests for proposals to ask for industry inputs on the process. Which leads, how can you have a discussion like this without a swoosh chart? I've learned, I never knew what a swoosh chart was before I came to this new job, but this is a great depiction of our plan. Beginning with, by the way, we pick up here after the 2024 landing, but this talks about how we continue to build the Gateway through 2030, and then how we expand lunar surface capabilities. So we, for example, deliver the international habitat. ESA's contribution. We will have the first gateway-based lunar landing. The airlock, we'll get an airlock hopefully from our Roscosmos, and then finally the exploration control module. And you can see more buildup of the surface elements here. The pressurized rover, really incredible element, human element. Actually, I've been in a lot of spacecraft on the ground. I've been in the International Space Station on the ground. This thing is the coolest element I've ever seen for people, because they can live and work inside. It's like a space station-esque kind of a habitat for up to 14 days, 2 people, 14 days, but it's on wheels and you can go places. It's like an RV for the moon. Very cool. We are, by the way, going to try and develop this jointly with JAXA, a Japanese contribution to our plan. So we're just starting to talk about that and the habitat. So anyway, we have all of these items in our budget summit for this year, in our plan, on our timeline. So I did not know any of this. You know, the piece I was working on is this little itty bitty here spacecraft here called Orion for the last 5 years of my life. So you can imagine how excited I am to be a part of this. And first of all, have your help in having your help in us achieving this, as well as us being a key part of the science and the work we're going to do here on the moon. So, hey, thanks for your time. Greg, Lori, back to you.
Great. Thank you so much, Mark. Lori, I don't know if you wanted to say any other words of introduction. I do have a question whenever you're ready.
I would like to give just a little bit of prefatory before we go to Q&A, if that's okay.
Please.
Really want to take advantage of this opportunity to talk to your audience while they're gathered for the forum. I thought I'd start by just giving a really, really quick update on Planetary Science program. This will be very brief and just top level. I'll try not to talk too much here. But just give you a quick update. The Mars 2020 Perseverance rover is on schedule now for a launch on July 30th. This is a delay from the original launch date of July 17th. There were some issues with the processing of the launch vehicle, but those have been resolved. There was a repair that was needed. The team down there, the ULA team, did a phenomenal job in getting that repair executed very, very quickly. And we are now moving steadily towards that open of the launch window on July 30th. So keep an eye out for that. Another big event that's going to be coming up in the coming months for Planetary is with OSIRIS-REx, which is our mission to collect a sample from the asteroid Bennu and bring it back to Earth. This community knows full well just how important those samples are to not only just understanding specific questions that we have now, but being preserved for the future generations. So we're very much looking forward to that. OSIRIS-REx successfully conducted an early test of their what they call the tag, the touch and go, where they're going to take the sample. They successfully completed that earlier in the spring. They've got one more rehearsal called the match point rehearsal coming up in August, and then the actual sample collection is scheduled for October. So keep an eye out for that. Really excited about that. Coming up in 2021, the next big events on our watch list are going to be the launches of DART, the Double Asteroid Redirection Test, and the launch of Lucy, which of course is the mission to visit several asteroids in the Jupiter system, the Trojan asteroids. So really excited about those two things coming up. I wanted to also take a quick moment to let folks know that we are keenly aware of the current situation with COVID-19. Not only is it making our lives to work and interact together more complicated, but we know that there are going to be sustained impacts on all of our flight missions. And of course, those are big, expensive things to begin with. And they have been working really hard to ensure the safety and health of all of the personnel, taking lots of precautions for social distancing, and a lot of work was stopped for quite a while. Some of it has started back up, but there will be cost impacts associated with COVID. We fully expect, we're tracking those as best we can continuously. Every week we get more information and try and track those. But for folks to know, as of today, right now, there is no special magical pot of money that's going to show up to cover those COVID impacts. And So we fully expect that we will have to deal with those coming in the future, and we have we have a fixed budget. So just so people know, this is going to be challenging for a long time to come. I think we're going to be feeling the impacts for a while. And as we have more information about how we plan to deal with those impacts, we will share those with everybody as soon as we can, as soon as we know information about how we'll deal with specific impacts. The last thing I wanted to mention quickly as a planetary update is just to mention the decadal survey, of course, is coming on us fast. We've got the 2 co-chairs named, which is fantastic. The panels are coming together, and the white papers are going to be due soon. And there was a lot of community concern about the deadline coming up on July, that just passed, actually July 4th was the original deadline. And there was a lot of concern that with COVID and other social unrest that people were not going to be able to meet that deadline. And the panel chairs have agreed to stagger the deadlines. And so the first one now is for science papers due on July 15th. And then there's additional deadlines in August and September for mission concepts, and then for additional white papers. So hopefully that has provided a little bit of relief for the community there. I wanted to take a moment and just say how excited we always are, but really, really excited to be working with the survey, with the SEO office, with Science and Technology office, with HEO, with Mark. So glad to have Mark here, and so glad to be partnering with him. Really trying to maximize that science that we can do through Artemis. I think survey is really key to that, and really we're very a proud sponsor of survey, and really happy to be able to continue our support for survey. And I think, Greg stated up front, and it can never get old, that, science enables exploration and exploration enables science. I think it's our mantra, and we stick with it. Working together, we can do some amazing things. So really glad to see us all continuing in that collaborative spirit. Quick update on Viper. Of course, Viper was, has evolved from something previously known as Resource Prospector. The SEO office, which was run by Steve Clark, and then currently by Ben Bussey in an acting role. They were able to revive Viper and get that started again. And in December and January, we successfully transitioned Viper over to Planetary Science Division. So we're now managing that, and just really excited about this mission. Not only does it do some great resource work in preparation for human exploration, but it's also a tremendous science mission on its own merit. And so very excited about leading that. I want to mention that we are intending to offer a participating scientist program for Viper. I don't have a release date for that yet, but I do want you to know, we expect to do that within this year, and that's in an attempt to try and expand the science team and expand participation in the Viper team. Last thing I'll mention is just Lunar Trailblazer, which is one of 3 small sat missions that were selected through Simplex. And of course, Lunar Trailblazer is going to the moon, and they are coming along in their development. They have a preliminary design review coming up in the fall, and they will be taking a ride on a heliophysics mission called IMAP. And so we're really excited watching how these small sats are starting to progress. And with that, I think I'll stop and allow us to take some questions.
Great. Well, thank you both so much for those excellent overviews. And I've said this before, I've been at NASA 35 years now, and I have never been more excited to be at NASA. And it's because of both what HUMD and SMD is doing. And so so I would like to do a kickoff question that was basically the same question that Thomas Zurbuchen asked Doug Libero last December, and that's, how can science help? And excuse me, in terms of this great voyage that Mark talked about. And maybe Lori, I'll give that to you first, and then Mark.
I'll start, but I really think, it's important that we hear from both sides, because we're here to help. Science really wants to not only provide data and information on environments at the moon that may be useful for planning or helpful in planning or selecting landing sites, So, lunar reconnaissance orbiter data, additional science that we're doing, the work that's going on within Survey, but also as we're starting to think about, as we're going to put humans on the moon, what are they going to do when they get there? What's the best science that we can do with humans on the moon? And I think science plays a really important role there in helping to define what are the big questions that we'd really like that human expertise, physically on the surface. How can they help? So we need to work together to answer those. But I think there's a huge trade space there where science can come to the table. Great,
thank you, Mark. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Oh my God, yeah. I hope I can fit it in. Don't let me run over. Wow, a lot of different ways across the entire life cycle. First, now in our planning, we're building vehicles, we're building spacesuits, we're planning missions, and information from scientific information, from studies, from trials, from experiments on people, pre-brief protocols are helping us every day inform timelines. How long does the crew have to pre-breathe before they can go out on a spacewalk? Information about on the surface of the moon, the environment, the radiation is helping us design our spacecraft. So there's this front end part of science that we're using today, that in day in and day out of our design cycle, that's helping us. There's that I'll call the unexpected things. I'm sitting in survey briefings that Greg set up, and I'm saying, wow, you guys have done that. We need to know more about that because these guys over here can learn from that. Like, for example, this visualization tool that I had no idea we had written already. And then of course, the piece that Lori alluded to, the piece that is, I think, most important for the long term. So we can do this long term. We have to provide return back to our larger stakeholders, the public, the people who let us do these great things. So the science, the things we're going to learn that help life here on Earth, that help the average person here on Earth, are extremely important to get that defined, get that plan. The little bit of science, a lot of technology development, the what we call in situ resource processing, learning how to take materials on the moon and converting them into things that we can then use to either keep people alive or further our mission. So, Greg, I see it every day, how science is helping the human program.
Fantastic. Yeah, thank you so much. I love those answers, and we're honored to help that. So I'd like to call on Clive Neal, who has his hand raised.
Yeah, my hand is perpetually raised, but it's a condition. It's a feature, not a bug. Okay, a couple of questions for Mark. And Mark, it seems like you've been drinking from a fire hose for the last 4 months. But on your chart, you had the lunar terrain vehicle arriving before the first mission. How are you going to make that happen? And keeping in the rover mind, you talked about the pressurized rover being an international development, but Johnson has already done a lot of development on such a vehicle. How are you leveraging that particular investment?
Yeah, great. Yeah, thanks, Clive. And you're right. It's been fun though. It's been a lot to learn, a lot to catch up on, and a lot to appreciate what everybody else has done to get us to this point. Let's see, your first question, LTV, when does it arrive before the first crew? And then how do we get it there, right? All right, I might have mistakenly portrayed it. Right now, our plan is to launch and land the unpressurized rover on the surface of the moon in 2025, which will be actually after the first lunar landing, before the second one. And there's several reasons for that. One, again, it is going to be so hard to get people to the moon for the first time. And it is an important goal to make 2024. We wanted to have a focus on getting people there for the first one. I'm glad you asked, how do we get the rover there, if that was your question, because I forgot. That's yet another example of how the science, and in this case, NASA Science Mission Director, is helping us. We're planning to use a CLPS lander. Are you familiar? Everybody's got CLPS, right? The acronym more on Commercial Lunar Payload Service, but it's a service that SMD, incredibly innovative new way of contracting for a service to get things at the surface of the moon. We haven't actually done one yet. I'm very anxious to see how the first one works, but these first CLIPS rover landers are going to take tens of kilograms, and then the second class is a 500 kilogram version. It's going to be used first to land the Viper that Lori talked about on the surface of the moon. There's a second mission that I believe is an STMD mission. Our rover would be the third. So it's great first of all, it's great that SMD's doing this, and it's really good to have that opportunity so we don't have to develop the lander. We can take advantage of something that's already been built. That was your first question. Lori, did you have something to add before I get to the other two, or the second?
No, I think you've covered that well. Go ahead.
Good. You popped up big on my screen, by the way, which is always great. Let's see. Clive, I think your second question was, we've done a lot of work at Johnson on the pressurized rover. Yeah, you're absolutely right. There's a couple of things, there's always, and I knew this, you guys all know this, when our job, our job depends on federal funding, on the country funding us. So we have to listen to our constituents that fund us and find out what's important to them. It is important. First of all, it's very important to our leadership at the moment to involve JAXA in a major surface element. That's number one. Number two, the Japanese and their auto industry, they have a very strong interest in rover type things. So there was an idea to, even though we have done a lot of work, to let the Japanese lead development of the pressurized rover. So right now, that's the direction we're heading in. But you're right, the people at Johnson, both the rover people, Rick Ambrose, Mike Ehrenhardt, their team, as well as the ECLS team from Marshall and Johnson, have done an incredible amount of work. And if you haven't been in the rovers at Johnson, everybody should try to get there. It is, I said it before, it is the coolest human element I've ever been in. They're on their third generation, and they've done a lot of work. They really understand how to build one. Now, we're not going to throw that away. What we're going to do is, first of all, we're going to let them lead. They're going to be the NASA lead in working with JAXA. And then I envision there's going to be a lot of interaction. So we're not throwing it away. We're going to use all of the work we've done to get to this point to help make the Japanese successful in their development. Was that it, Clive, or was there a third one? Sorry, I went on.
Well, there's always more. I mean, but there's other people with their hands raised, so I'm going to be quiet now.
There are.
Thanks, Mark.
All right, thank you. And I want to be respectful of both of your time. There's one more question from Dana Hurley, if you have time for it, and maybe that's it. So Dana, please go ahead.
All right, thanks. Hey, so I mean, this is a very exciting time, and NASA is doing a lot of great things with lunar exploration. So my question is, on the PSD side, how are you going to handle lunar science missions with the competed lines? Are lunar science missions going to be through the Discovery New Frontiers lines, or conversely, how can we get Discovery and New Frontiers and flagship level science out of CLIPS and the human exploration missions?
Dan, that's a great question, and I think the way I like to think about it is we have a whole big palette of options out there right now, which I think is great. Certainly, Discovery is an option, and I do think that there will be opportunities for future lunar missions through Discovery, but I'd like to see something even more frequent available for that, whether that be through Simplex or through some type of CLIPS opportunities. And so we're talking, of course, with the SEO folks about what kinds of things they're going to run through their office and what kind of opportunities. And we want to make sure that there are some lunar science things that we can make sure we're able to take advantage of what's going on in SEO, but also again through Simplex opportunities as well. So that's kind of where what I'm thinking. I think we have that full palette of options there to us, and we're open to thinking about other types of possibilities as well. So hopefully that'll partly address your question.
All right, thanks.
All right, great. Well, I know we're 5 minutes over right now, and I would love to have about 2 or 3 hours of each of your time. And I just want to say thank you so much on behalf of this of Survey and this entire community. It's just an honor to help in this great quest. And we look forward to the next few years. There's a lot of exciting things coming up. So thank you very, very much, both of you, for joining us.
Thank you, Greg.
Thanks, Greg.
Thank you,
Thanks for
everybody.
letting us be a part. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.